What's going on YouTube? Super Insane 18 here, and today I actually wanted to take a little bit of a trip down memory lane. I wanted to talk about my personal Yu-Gi-Oh history and just kind of go over this binder here that you can see. I call this the Hall of Fame. The requirements for a deck to be in the Hall of Fame are I had to have topped a regional level or higher event with it, or played it at an event like Nationals. So let's go ahead and jump on it. Alright, so let's go ahead and start things off, and we see first I actually have my Mermails. And this is a deck that anybody that knows me knows it holds a very special place in my heart. This is the first deck that I actually topped with. Let's go ahead and throw the build on screen and take a look at it. So you can see here that there is a lot of things that just wouldn't fly in today's format. It was a much slower game, and Mermail was just super fast. I could just go in, no matter whether I won or lost the dice roll. I was more than often going second, and I would just tear through your board. I would completely just blow you out of the water, no pun intended. OTK every single time. It was insane. And you can see here, like, there's cards like Maxi that are banned, or Instant Fusion that's limited to 1, and even though we had 3 Instant Fusion, the only target was Norden, which is now banned. Incredible card for the Mermail strategy. This was back in 2016. It was actually the first regional of that season. I ended up taking 16th place. And you can see that there's definitely some weird things going on. Cosmo was a really big threat for me personally, so you can see that I had the system downs there on the side. Blue Eyes was really big that format, so I would sacrifice my normal summon of Neptibus for the Quarantine, just so that they couldn't play, and like even if I, had to lose a turn, it didn't matter because they just couldn't do anything. It was ridiculous. BA was a huge threat. You can see that with the Flying Sea and the Ghost Reapers with the Tante. But yeah, this deck definitely brings back some memories. So this got me my invite back in 2016. Like I said, it was the first one of the season and the first invite that I ever personally got. Moving on, oh man. So this one is a little bit of an exception as far as the Hall of Fame goes. This is... So let's turn the page really quick so you can see. Now, I do just want to kind of disclaimer, these were not out back in 2016. They're just in here because they are part of the Phantom Knight archetype. But yeah, you can see that these two pages going together might raise some questions. This is a deck that I actually built together with the Cali effect. Me and him actually live in the same city, and we were pretty good friends for a while. Not as close friends as we used to be, people just kind of fall apart, but he's still definitely a friend in my eyes, and this deck was incredible. We called it Speed Racer. Let's throw the build up on the screen here. Now, the reason that I say this is a little bit of an exception is because I didn't actually top with this, even though I went 7-1 at the Las Vegas Regional. And the reason I didn't top is because I decided to drop. This was a point in my Yu-Gi-Oh career where I didn't care about the glory of it all. I just wanted an invite. And I already had my invite because of the previous deck, Mermail, that year. So I was undefeated going into the 8th round, and I ended up losing that round. So I decided, you know what, I didn't win the event, I already have my invite, I'm gonna go ahead and drop and let somebody else get it. I was very big in the mindset of if you already have your invite, there's no point to steal it from somebody else, and I know that that's kind of like a big, just like a big dividing point between people in the community. Some people will just sit there and continue to top events. I mean, it's worth a little bit more now because they do the whole World's Point system anyway. But there are people that would sit there and they would go for the glory. They wanted top 8 or bust. I'm going to win this event even if I already have my invite. And I was just there wanting to have my invite. And I already had my invite, so I was messing around. And this deck overperformed. That is putting it mildly. This deck was absolutely insane back in that format. And yeah, so when I lost round 8 and there was no way for me to take first, I just said, you know what? Let's give it to somebody else. I already have it. I don't need it. So even though I didn't technically top an event with this deck, I went 7-1, which is just... That's the best that I've ever done in any event. Even my top 8s that I've gotten, I've never done this well, and I really shouldn't have dropped, but it was a different mindset back then. So I really, really enjoyed this one. Let's go ahead and go to the next one. Alright, so you can see starting on this page here, we have some Performapals, and funny enough, it's not actually a Performapal deck. If we move to the next page, you'll see that we've actually got some Zodiacs following it up. So let's go ahead and throw this build on the screen. This is what I played at the 2017 Nationals. Because I got my invite in late 2016, it was for the 2017 National season, and I decided to play what I called Zoo Pals. Not to be confused with those old plates that you would see infomercials for when you were a kid, but I was very, very salty that Norden got banned because of this deck. Because I was a Mermail player. I loved Norden. It did everything that Mermails needed it to do. So I decided to kind of spite Konami and show them that Norden isn't the issue is Zodiac, and I paired Zodiac with Performapals, and it was an insane combo. All you needed was, it was like Barrage and Duelist Alliance, or realistically anyway, into Rat and Duelist Alliance, and you would just start comboing. You would end up using the Pendulum Rising on the target that you resummoned with Chalkanine. That would summon out your copy of Pensork. Pensork would pop the Dragonis scale, or whatever it is, that vanilla monster that you see in the top left, because that was a Beast Warrior Pendulum scale that you could search off of Broad Bull. So you'd pop that in itself. You would get the Guitardle and the Lizard draw. If you did have the Barrage instead of the Rat and you had your normal, you would go for like Guitardle and Skullcrobat just so that you could normal it and get another search. And it just sat there and extended. Throughout your game, you would just set up a really big board, set a couple traps. You'd had Kaijus for the follow-up, and it was really cool. I didn't really do that well in that Nationals, honestly. I was 3 places away from actually qualifying for day 2. It was a really big Nationals. If I remember correctly, it was like, I think 2,700 people. So it was like the top 256 would make it to day 2, and I ended up taking like 259 or 260, somewhere around there. It was really close. I just missed it by the skin of my teeth. But the deck was really fun. I still think it's funny that I was trying to spite Konami and show them like, oh, Zodiac is the issue, this and that, and I didn't even do much with it, but it was definitely fun. It was my first ever national event. It was really cool, so let's go ahead and take a look at our next deck. Oh boy. And here we actually have Spiral. So this came out, well, I mean, it came out in 2016, but the big boy, this guy right here, he came out in the end of 2017. The 2017 Nationals was the last event before Lynx actually came out, and then he came out October of that year. I didn't actually top with it, though, until the Las Vegas ARG that we had in January of 18. Let's go ahead and throw that build on the screen now. Wow. Looking at this, a lot has changed. Master Plan and Gofu were banned. Obviously, Maxi is banned. Look at all those one-ofs. Wow. Ancient Fairies banned. And I actually have a really good story about this deck, too. This is a deck that, my one goal in Yu-Gi-Oh! After I got my invite to Nationals for the first time was I want to play a random card and top an event with it just so that it randomly spikes in price. I had no reason for doing that. It was just something that I really wanted to do, and this is the deck that got me to do that, and I have to thank Simo for it. Again, I live in the same town as Simo, so me and him are fairly good friends as well, and you can see there in the side deck that I have Nightbeam. So we're at the ARG, and I'm telling Simo, Nightbeam is the card. Like, this card is absolutely insane. We're in a format where the 2 best decks are Spiral, which is pretty much uncontested, and Trickstar, which is just annoying because they can reincarnation your one-ofs like your Drone or your Quick Fix. So I was under the assumption of no decent player is going to blind reincarnation. They are going to wait for you to add the card that you need, and then they are going to reincarnate then. But if you just Nightbeam them, what are they going to do? They can't chain the reincarnation. They usually only have the guaranteed 1. So if they make their board, they set 1 pass, you Nightbeam the reincarnation, and congratulations, it's just free. The entire event, Simo's telling me that I'm stupid, that Nightbeam isn't the card, and I showed him because it was the final round, round 8. I'm at table 7, and I'm against Trickstar. Game 1, I win the dice roll. I just blow him out of the water. Really wasn't too much to be said there. Game 2, I side in the Night Beams. He goes first. He sets up his board. He ends up on like double Lycoris, set 1 pass. The one that he set was the reincarnation that I know he searched. And I have the absolute nuts hand. I have Gofu. I have my quick fix already. I have a resort. I just have so much that there's no way I can lose this game unless I get reincarnated, and my top deck is the Night Beam. So I look at my hand. Simo's behind me watching, and you can just hear him. He literally audibly just says, "Oh my god, you're fucking kidding me." So I activate the Night Beam, target my opponent's set card that I know is the reincarnation, and he just looks at me and he's like, "Can I read that?" I'm like, "Yeah, go for it." He reads it for a second. He looks at me. He's like, "So I can't respond with my set card." I'm like, "No, you cannot." And he's like, "Okay then." He puts the reincarnation in the grave. I blow him out of the water. I OTK. And Simo did one of his tournament report videos the next day, and towards the end of it, he said, and I gotta give it to my friend, I think he's stupid, but it paid off for him, and he hyped up Night Beam, and then Ulti Night Beams went from an $8 card to a $70 card, and my dream was completed. I ended up taking 15th. I did lose in the top 16 the next morning. Unfortunate, but it does play out that way sometimes. So this is Spiral. Now, the next deck is actually also Spiral. Let's throw the build up on the screen now. This is a Nightmare variant of Spiral. This was after some hits. You can see that the deck differs very much so from the original. The original was a blind second build. This is a blind first build. And looking at it, you can see, we played cards like Destrudo to turbo into Ancient Fairy Dragon. We had cards like Black Rose in case we needed to nuke a board going second. Resort was already put to 1. We started playing cards like the Foolish Burial Goods for the trap cards that would reborn, and the entire purpose of this deck was to set up a Trigate Wizard that was co-linked 3 times so that you had the Omni Negate with Sleeper and just blow out your opponent between the Negate and the Double Pop. There wasn't a lot to do. This deck I took, I think, 15th again, actually, because I was kind of in that cursed spot where I can't get past the top 16 bracket, so I took 15th with this at the Arizona Regional. This is what got me my invite for the 2018-2019 season. This was for the 2018 season. Yeah, the 2017-2018 season, because I played the next deck at the 2018 Nationals. But yeah, so Spiral is the deck that I have topped with the most times. Probably my favorite deck in the game. Let's go ahead and go to the next one. So here, unfortunately, we only have half of the deck that was played. Let's go ahead and throw it up on the screen. It was actually Trickstar Sky Striker. I did get rid of my Sky Striker last year, unfortunately, before the recent list. Otherwise, it would be worth a lot more than what I got for it. But I did play Trickstar Sky Striker at the 2018 Nationals. And this is a deck that, again, I just barely missed day 2 on. It was 9 rounds on the first day. I went undefeated for the first 6 of them, and then just completely ate it, losing rounds 7, 8, and 9. And looking at the deck, you can see Scapegoat was at 3 during this format, and it was kind of insane, honestly. You would Scapegoat on your opponent's end phase, get your 4 tokens, go into Mrs. Radiant, Link Spider, Link Karibo, make a free Borreload, steal whatever they had. It was an insane format. And there were other things that you can do. You can see the Phantom Skyblaster. That was actually insane, because the Phantom Skyblaster would let you just go off on Nightmare plays. You would engage into Hornet Drone into Kagari, grab back the Hornet Drone, activate it again, normal Skyblaster. You would have 6 monsters on your field, and it was just absolutely crazy. But yeah, like I said, unfortunately, just a little bit short. I went undefeated the first 6, lost the next 3, didn't make it to day 2, but that was the 2018 Nationals. Moving on to the 2018 Regionals after the Nationals, it was actually, again, the first regional of the season, and I got my invitation with Altergeist. Build up on the screen now. It was actually kind of crazy. This is honestly one of my favorite decks. I'm a little weird when it comes to Yu-Gi-Oh! I really prefer combo decks when it comes down to it, but I just tend to do better with control decks. So this is a deck I took 27th place, not as high as some of my others. It was top 32, so I did get my invite. it was another one of those events where the first several rounds I just did absolutely incredible, and then the last couple of rounds I just completely biffed it. And looking at the build, I mean, my favorite thing to do was just activate Skill Drain under Protocol, because then my Altergeist effects couldn't be negated, and it was just kind of insane. This was before they changed the mind control rulings as well, so you were able to look at your opponent's hand. Being able to metaverse, I went against Simo round 2 of this regional, and he was still playing Trickstar, so I win game 1, or he wins game 1. I choose to go first game 2. I set Metaverse with a Multi-Faker in hand, and on his standby, I just activate the Multiverse, go into the Secret Village, summon the Multi-Faker, and he just can't play because he doesn't have spellcasters in his deck. He's playing Trickstars. He needs his spells. There's nothing he can do. He tries to like normal something, but I bounce with the Siliquidus that the Multi-Faker gets me. This deck was just crazy. A lot of the extra deck honestly was just Cherry's targets, because you really didn't need the extra deck for Altergeist. This was before we had cards like Extravagance, so Desires and Duality were the best cards we had, leaving a lot of just blank space in the extra deck. Wow, you can see I've got like the Dante, the Electromite, the Double Helix, the Kagari and Shizuku, the Isolde, and all these were literally just Cherry's targets for the side deck. But yeah, I was doing really well with this deck and just kind of failed the last couple rounds. Still got my invite though, so it secured its spot in the Hall of Fame. And this is the last deck that is going to be in the Hall of Fame, and you can see that it is Orcust. Now, the reason this is the last deck is it is what I played in the 2019 Nationals, and it is also what I've done the best at an actual tournament with. Again, there are 2 tops with this deck, similar to the Spiral. Not really 2 tops, because one of them was a Nationals play that I didn't top, but Nationals makes it into the Hall of Fame as far as I'm concerned. So the build on the screen right now, this is going to be the build that I played at Nationals. This was when the memes first started that any 2 monsters is Orcust combo, which is why you played stuff like Trickstar Light Stage, and you would go Candina into Korribane, that would be your Nightmare, into your Mermaid, into your Orcusts, and it was just crazy. This was back when you would also play the Rusty, and you would sit there and you would Rusty Dinkirsu, get multiple pops on your opponent's turn. Actually just crazy. So definitely a really cool deck. And then let's go ahead and throw the next build on the screen now as well. This is the build that I took 3rd at the Las Vegas Regional with, and that is the best that I have ever done with a deck in general, other than the Speed Racer deck that I dropped with because it was a different mindset. But this was a deck that I worked very closely with a good friend of mine on for like a month and a half, and we were just going back and forth, constantly testing, constantly theorizing, thinking like, okay, well, how do we play if they Nibiru at this point? How do we play if they do this at this point? How do we out this particular board? How do we out this particular deck? And he's probably one of, if not the best player in the city that I live in. So I'm definitely very grateful that I got to work with him on this deck. I only lost to Salamangrate that regional, and it was my round 5. So I won rounds 1 through 4, lost round 5, and then I won 6, 7, 8. So I ended up 3rd place with this deck, and honestly, it was just incredible. I love Orcust. Definitely contender for my favorite deck alongside Spiral. But there you guys have it. That is my Hall of Fame. Hopefully you enjoyed this little kind of trip through the past, seeing the different formats and what I personally have topped with. Every deck that is in this binder holds a very special place in my heart, and I'm just glad that I can be able to share this with you guys. You know, I didn't start playing Yu-Gi-Oh! Competitively until 2015, even though I've been playing the game realistically my entire life, but these are just some of the decks and cards that hold a very special place to me. So hopefully you guys enjoyed this as much as I do. If you liked it, make sure to comment, subscribe, share with your friends, and I will see you guys in the next one.